Who said hell had to be all that bad? What do you mean that's the whole concept of hell? Not for those invested in the Hazbin Hotel, where sinners can find redemption, friendship, and maybe even more. And that's certainly a good thing because, well, the average hell-centered relationship is far from pretty. I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and this is Hazbin Hotel Relationships Healthy to Toxic. Let's waste no time. These are the ride-or-die relationships that give hell a more wholesome paint job. These are the healthy relationships. Starting out with the most adorable relationship in the series, Fat Nuggets and Angel Dust. Not only does their relationship sound incredibly confusing to anyone who hasn't watched the show, but it shows us that no matter how hard life gets, there's always going to be someone to count on. In this case, that someone just happens to be the most adorable little demon pig you've ever seen. Angel does not have a happy life, to say the least. He's addicted to thrills, drugs, sex, and the poison. But through good times and bad times, he's always got Fat Nuggets to cheer him up. And you can tell the poor guy needs it sometimes. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're just putting them at the top because you're biased due to how cute Fat Nuggets is. And to that I say, good observation. The silver medal of healthiness, likewise, goes to Charlie and her pets, Razzle, Dazzle, and Kiki. Really, all we said about Fat Nuggets and Angel, we can say about these guys. In fact, it's even more on the nose here. Razzle and Dazzle straight up bring Charlie tissues when she's crying and act as her and Vaggie's loyal steeds in the final battle. But it goes without saying that pets are going to be among the healthiest relationships that these guys have. So let's get to the complicated ones. We'll start with a relationship we don't know much about yet, that of Zestial and Carmilla. Very little is known about Zestial as a character so far, and the same can be said for the nature of his relationship with Carmilla. That said, what we do know is that they're, at the very least, a pair of very close friends. Zestial offers Carmilla his ear to vent after the tough meeting with the other overlords, and encourages her to share the worries of her troubled soul with him. Okay, worded like that, there's gotta be some romance brewing, right? In any case, these two are clearly close and comfortable around each other. Carmilla's daughters seem to be comfortable with Zestial, so they've certainly spent some time together, especially given that nearly everyone else in hell is absolutely mortified of the guy. And when Carmilla sings about her determination to protect, she doesn't just look at them, but also at Zestial. Whatever the nature of their bond, these two clearly care about each other a lot, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing more of that wholesomeness next season. Next up, we have the most fleshed out relationship in the series so far, the romance between Charlie and Vaggie. While we have to take some points away from this relationship for the fact that Vaggie was lying to Charlie about her true identity as an angel for years, that's about the only mark against these two that makes them anything less than a model healthy relationship. Like Rosie expressed, actions are more important than words, and the fact is that Vaggie is aggressively supportive of Charlie, wanting to protect and support her in the hotel in any way she can. Charlie is also a thoughtful partner, being quick to forgive Vaggie for concealing her identity.
They look nice. Come on, let's go home.
And even giving her a keychain she got as a souvenir from Cannibal Town. While neither of them are without flaws, it's clear that they'll always cherish and support each other. And as long as they've got each other, they'll never be fighting their battles alone. As for Charlie's healthiest friendship, that honor goes to the friendship between Charlie and Sir Pentious. Given that Charlie is the one who reached out to Sir Pentious upon realizing that he wanted to change his ways, this one was pretty much guaranteed a spot in the healthy category. That spot is only made more certain by the friendship they forge over the course of the season.
At this rate, you'll be redeemed in no time.
These two definitely care about each other. You can see them interacting all the time, and it always seems to be in a positive light. From Pentious tearing up at her heartfelt musical number with Lucifer, to Charlie putting up a portrait dedicated to his memory in the hotel, these two managed to make a bond that both of them will remember for eternity. Because our boy made it to heaven. At the end of the day, Charlie's friendship literally changed the course of Sir Pentious's afterlife, and that's worth a lot. Another newly blossomed friendship that many would like for to become more is that of Angel and Husk. Admittedly, things don't start smoothly between these two.
Call me Whiskers again and I'll jam that bottle down your throat.
Husker is a bit insensitive in his methods of calling out Angel's confident facade, and while he is right, this really drives a wedge between the two. We can't ignore Angel's misdeeds in the relationship though, most notably hitting on Husk repeatedly despite his clear discomfort. But thankfully, these two have something very important in common. They're both losers, baby. And with just one iconic musical number, these two went from borderline enemies to instant best friends. Angel and Husk are helping each other learn to fix their greatest flaws, more specifically Angel's self-loathing and denial and Husk's general stoicism. By the end of the season, you can tell there's plenty of change going on thanks to their newfound friendship, and it would be criminal not to mention the friendship between Charlie and Angel. Now, Angel's character development didn't start as quickly as Sir Pentious's, which is why this friendship is a bit lower. That said, there's a very clear care and respect between the two. Charlie goes out of her way to use her hell-given authority to try, emphasis on try, to get Angel some time off of work. Unfortunately, this only makes things worse, but props for effort. Charlie is quick to apologize, and Angel is quick to forgive her by the end of the day. He's gone from a freeloader who's just there for the free room, to a guy who's willing to stick around even when genocidal angels come a-knockin'. Now we return to the best character in the show. It's time to talk about the relationship between Sir Pentious and the Egg Boys. Thankfully, Pentious's redemption arc made him much kinder to his little egg buddies. He still barks orders at them, sure.
Now go clean my quarters this instant!
But it's more of a King Dedede and the Waddledees dynamic now. They may have a duty to clean Pentious's room and whatever else he didn't feel like doing, but after that they're on bedtime snuggle duty. And the Egg Boys will follow into battle no matter what, even if it means sacrificing themselves. God rest their souls. May they comprise the most extraordinary omelets in heaven. For the last of Sir Pentious' major relationships, we have Sir Pentious and Cherry Bomb's prematurely ended romance. Or it could have been a romance anyway.
Cherry Bomb, I love you!
It's clear that Pentious genuinely likes Cherry Bomb, both as an adversary and as a potential partner to, quote, do his sex with. Whether Cherry reciprocates these feelings fully is anyone's guess, but given how she enjoyed that pre-sacrifice kiss, it's a fair chance that the answer would have been a resounding yes.
That was kind of hot.
In any case, these two genuinely like having each other around. Now, normally, an adult film star would not be a great choice for a babysitter, but the relationship between Angel and Nifty defies that logic. If there's anything that proves how far Angel has come, it's his care for Nifty. She's not exactly super close with anyone in particular at the hotel, but Angel is definitely the one who tries hardest to rein her in. When the gang goes to a club to have a fun time, he keeps an eye on the ever-curious housekeeper, even going as far as to risk his neck standing up to Valentino in order to keep Nifty from falling into his clutches.
But out here, I get to do what I want.
There are also some moments where Angel calmly removes weapons from his little buddy's hands, which we're sure the whole hotel staff is quite thankful for. Nearing the end of the healthy relationships, we have Charlie and Lucifer Morningstar. In our Good to Evil, we already mentioned how Lucifer was a way nicer guy than we honestly expected, and that's shown mostly through his relationship with Charlie. Just listen to more than anything, guys. The only reason we're placing this at the lower end of the healthy category rather than any higher is the fact that Lucifer was absent from Charlie's life for a long time. We get that depression is a real demon, but when you're a parent, that doesn't excuse you from, being a parent. Still, Lucifer is stepping up and trying to make up for lost time, and so far, we'd say he's doing a pretty great job. He even saved Charlie's life from Adam in the final battle, and when all hope for the hotel seemed lost, he encourages her and helps rebuild it. He's had his ups and downs, but the guy's making a ton of progress. And rounding out our healthy category, we have the friendship between Cherry Bomb and Angel. While it's obvious these two care about each other deeply, given how much time they spend together and how excited they always are to see each other, we have to place them at the end of the healthy category for one two-word reason: bad influence.
You know you're my favorite guy to party with.
Cherry Bomb isn't a bad person and certainly not a bad friend, but when push comes to shove, she does tend to influence Angel's personality in a negative way. We can see this during their night out at the club when she encourages him to get wasted on drugs despite his progress. Still, the friendship gets a ton of points for the fact that Cherry is still happy for Angel's progress at the hotel. Even if it's not her thing, she still supports her friend and even helps him protect the hotel. Granted, that was partially for the action, but we're still counting it in her favor. These two are serious ride or die buddies, and that's enough to cement that they belong in this category. She might be a bad influence at times, but Cherry is the kind of friend Angel will always be able to count on when the need arises, and that's what matters most. Now we get to the relationships that aren't fully healthy but still remain far from toxic. These are the rocky relationships. This might be a hot take, but we're gonna put Alastor and Charlie's relationship just outside the healthy category. While we can't possibly put a relationship that's pretty much the definition of, quote, preying on your downfall any higher, Alastor showed an impressive amount of goodwill towards Charlie this season. Say what you will about him, but he's true to his word for helping Charlie with the hotel, and seems to genuinely enjoy his time with her, even if that's partially to mess with Lucifer's head.
You are much shorter in real life.
He also took a serious beating defending the hotel from Adam and wasn't opposed to Charlie hugging him upon his return. Maybe this radio-talking psychopath has more of a heart than we expect, but only time will tell, and whether this relationship ends up higher or lower depends on a lot of factors, not the least of which being the favor that Charlie now owes him. Moving on to the pair of main villains for the season, Adam and Lute, the leading extermination angels. While both of them are absolute garbage as people, they do seem to be able to work quite well together.
Awesome job, Danger. It's found it.
That's not to say they're always on the same page though. Adam is much more brash and vulgar compared to Lute, who is more collected and arguably even more dangerously tunnel-visioned. Adam and Lute don't have the most deep, intimate connection, but there's a clear respect between them, and given that Lute shed some tears at Adam's death, it's safe to say there was some care between these two scumbags. From one villain team to another, next up is the three-way bond between the Vees. No, not that kind of three-way. Then again, with the nature of this show, maybe. These three are tied together by their mutually ambitious evil nature. Together, they work to keep Pentagram City under their control, with Vox's business tactics, Val's manipulation and charm, and Velvette being a influencer. The three of them are determined to keep all the demons of hell right where they want them. But given Val's tendency to throw tantrums, Vox's literal hate boner for Alastor,
I am so hard right now!
and Velvette just being completely done with both of them 90% of the time, there are definitely some stumbling blocks to their relationship. They work well together when they're able to, that is. From a trio of overlords to a duo of angels. Next is the relationship between Emily and Sera. This one should be pretty self-explanatory. While Emily loves and respects Sera, and Sera clearly cares deeply for Emily, there's one faucet missing, that being Sera's respect for Emily. More specifically, she doesn't have much. She approved of Adam's plan to do exterminations in hell without notifying Emily at all. Of course, Emily was disgusted, as she should be, and has clearly been hurt by what she sees as a deep betrayal on Sera's end. Given the conflict of interest between Emily supporting Charlie's plan of redemption and Sera not doing that, we have to rank them pretty low, but there's possibility for some healing to go on here, so we won't call them outright toxic yet. The last relationship we're going to talk about in this category is the old friendship between Alastor and Mimsy. For a notoriously twisted overlord, Alastor has quite a few friends, Mimsy being one of his closest. Unfortunately, that closeness comes less from Mimsy genuinely caring about him and more from her expecting him to clean up all her messes. In her debut, and so far I'm pretty sure her only appearance, she leads a gang of loan sharks to the hotel, placing it and everyone inside in grave danger, all because she wasn't ready to face the consequences of her actions. While Alastor doesn't mind helping Mimsy, and while she does genuinely seem to enjoy his company, she's still kind of an awful friend for that.
I think you should go, Mimsy. Now.
Especially since Husk recounts that she only really comes by when she needs something. Here's hoping we can see Mimsy pull her own weight next season. But for now, she's closing the curtain on our middle category, and it's now time for the really hellish relationships. These are the toxic relationships. First up in this category warrants a quick mention to the relationship between news co-anchors Katie Killjoy and Tom Trench. They only make 2 appearances throughout the entire season, but these two are still bickering just as much as ever. Actually, it's not even bickering. Katie's just bullying this poor guy for practically no reason. He can't even say his name without being shoved off screen and hidden behind news footage Mike Wazowski style. But at least, not to assume anything, Tom's soul isn't enslaved to Katie. Enter the relationship between Alastor and Husk. Really, the fact that Husk can even compare his relationship with Alastor to Angel's with Valentino says it all. Granted, it's nowhere near as horrific, but Husk still isn't having a great time. In his own words, he sold his soul to Alastor to save his own power, forcing him to be a bartender as long as Alastor wills it. The good in this relationship begins and ends with the fact that as long as Husk doesn't step out of line, Alastor offers him protection and consistent work. But if Husk even questions Alastor, he gets a bit more punishment than just a spray bottle of water. Kicking off our bottom 5 is perhaps the yin and yang of the overlords, Velvette and Carmilla. While we don't see a ton of them interacting, we have to give them a mention in the toxic category for their strong conflict of interests in regards to the dangers of heaven's exterminations. Upon discovering the dismembered head of an extermination angel, Velvette pressures Carmilla to take the fight to them instead of waiting around and strategizing.
We can take the fight to them.
While Carmilla promptly refuses, knowing how dangerous it would be to not only let demons know that angels can be slaughtered, but to give them the knowledge of how to do it. From Carmilla's perspective, Velvette is an impulsive, reckless brat who has no respect for authority. In contrast, Velvette sees Carmilla as a coward who refuses to use the authority she wields for the good of her people. They both have good reasons to hate each other, and to make matters worse, neither is fully correct, making it unlikely that they'll be seeing eye to eye anytime soon. Narrowly avoiding the bottom 3 is the relationship between Charlie and Adam. We've now reached the territory of relationships that have pretty much zero positive qualities.
How many of you freaks do I have to fight?
Charlie and Adam are enemies through and through. Adam callously exterminates Charlie's people with no regard for their lives whatsoever, and has no issue with making these mini genocides more frequent on a whim. If that weren't bad enough, Adam also vaporized Sir Pentious, one of Charlie's best friends, right in front of her eyes. The only reason we don't place this relationship even lower is the fact that they haven't known each other as long as the remaining 3. So you could argue these adversaries' wounds are a little less deep than those of the remaining 3. For our bronze medal of toxicity, we have the vengeance-driven feud between Vaggie and Lute. This could extend to Vaggie and all of the extermination angels, really. But since Lute is the one who tore out her eye and mutilated her upon seeing her spare a demon child, we're gonna say this one's a bit more personal than the rest. Both of these two have every reason to want revenge on the other. From Lute viewing Vaggie as a dirty double-crosser, to Vaggie viewing Lute with one less eye thanks to what she did to her. In the end, Lute is only alive because Vaggie spared her, which to Lute might just be a fate worse than death. The silver medal of toxicity goes to the villainous rivalry between Vox and Alastor, TV and radio, a feud as old as time, or you know, as old as TV and radio, at least. The point is that these two hate each other. Most of the hatred, though, is on Vox's end. The news that Alastor is back absolutely enrages him, and he promises to make him wish that he'd never returned. The feeling is mutual, though, and what ensues is the most snazzy musical session of mutual roasting hell's ever seen. This goes beyond a business rivalry into full-on mortal enemy territory, to the point where Vox literally gets hard at the idea of Alastor being brutally murdered. With that, you've got some problems you need worked out, man. Oh, and yeah, it's also worth mentioning that Vox asked Alastor to join the Vees, which, let's be real, was already doomed to fail since Alastor does not have a V in the name. Alastor's rejection only makes Vox and his wound even saltier. But to be honest, Vox and Alastor may be fated arch-rivals itching to watch each other crumble, but the relationship between Angel and Valentino makes it look absolutely pleasant and tame in comparison. Could the gold medal of toxicity really go to any relationship other than the one that has 2 musical numbers dedicated to how horrible it is, one of them not even being in the show? Valentino's manipulation led Angel down a dark path from which he's struggling to return. Pretty much any kind of abuse you can think of. Valentino's treatment of Angel makes Adam's exterminations look like a game of kickball on the playground. It makes sense that the scummiest character in the show would be responsible for the most toxic relationship. That said, if we had to say something positive about it, we will say that Poison is an absolute bop, and it's not going to leave our heads anytime soon. But hopefully Angel can leave the soul signing contract soon.